From Canada, Citizens Forum, where we look at the important issues of the day through a lens of democracy and media and try to figure out, how do we build a better country for ourselves? Hello and welcome to From Canada, Citizens Forum. It is Sunday, March 30th, 2025. The three of us are myself, Jack Etkin, Norm Ryder, and Medhi Najari. At least from my perspective, we come from a Canadian point of view and with the underlying theme of democracy and media. I want to talk a little bit about tariffs. I was surprised to find out a couple of days ago that it is the US Congress, not the president, that has control over tariffs. And so what that seems to mean, now they can delegate that authority to the president when they want to, and they've done so in the past, and that's not a problem. But Trump is acting with like a craziness on tariffs now, and the U.S. Congress pretends that they are in no way a part of it, even though, according to the U.S. Constitution, and here it is, they have control over tariffs. So this is from the congress.gov, which I assume is the official arm of the U.S. Congress. And then in the second paragraph, it says, the Constitution grants Congress the power to regulate foreign commerce, impose tariffs, and collect revenue. As discussed in this report, Congress has long enacted laws authorizing the president to adjust tariff rates on goods in certain circumstances. So what that seems to mean is tariffs are the power of the Congress, not the president, but they can let him do what he wants, if they so authorize. And now with all the craziness that President Trump is doing on tariffs, and it's being all pushed on him as if he was, sort of out of control and crazy, which you could certainly argue on this point. And yet it is in fact the US Congress that controls tariffs. And I really wonder why we're not being told that. And I'm really wondering why the US Congress is completely silent, it seems, on the issue. We don't hear a word about it. And these tariffs, which are on again, off again, up and down, nobody knows what they're doing. And the Congress, which has authority over tariffs, is allowing the president to say all this stuff and pretending that they are not involved, even though they are totally involved. So, I really wonder, where are the Democrats? Where are the Republicans? And why is this being kept quiet? And why isn't our media telling us this fact that the Congress should be playing a major role? So now we're seeing, because of these tariffs, Canada is rethinking our entire role with the United States. We're in the middle of an election, and tariffs have completely taken over the election, as if there's no other issue, and there isn't. And big things are coming out of this tariff crisis. And yet we're not told, I think, one of the most important facts, which is that President Trump doesn't have any authority to do what he says he's going to do without the approval of the US Congress. So I phoned up a radio show in Vancouver. This is CKNW, which is the big news talk radio program in Vancouver. And, they were talking about something similar, and I got in and I said this point, that it's the Congress, not the president. And the host of the show obviously knew all about this. He said, I think most of us do know. He either said most of us do know about this, or most of us know all about this. And then he went into a 30-second piece about how President Trump, I guess, does have the right to do exactly what he's doing, and didn't let me comment again. So it's almost like the media don't want us to know the truth. And that is very dangerous, because big things are coming out of this tariff issue. Okay, Norm, we're moving on to, if nobody has a comment, we'll move on to.
Well, Jack, I was going to say that the Congress has, since I think it's around the 1950s, started giving the president the control, but it, to me, is more of not just this. We have it in all the so-called democracies in the West, where we seem to be giving more and more control to the, I guess we call it central part of the government, so that we basically have a dictatorial democracy, if that makes any sense. And it's part
Makes
of
as
the
much sense
continuing
as what's
loss of
happening.
democracy.
Yep. Okay, Norm, your first topic.
Well, I thought maybe we should talk about what I found when I measured the radiation levels at your place. You found that quite interesting. Sort of, shall we say, a quick summary of? Would be a good way to start this.
That was a very interesting story. When Rogers took over Shaw, I had a Shaw cable TV and internet. So Rogers phoned me up and they said, we're the new boss and we want to just come in and change. So they came in and they put in, I don't even know what that machine was, a new modem or can I say that?
Well, I think you're probably referring to the extender, which is between the modem and your router.
Okay, so they put in a couple of pieces of equipment. I told them I wanted it to be wired because I was concerned about the safety of wireless, right? And then, but I had a cheap meter that's broken now, but it showed me that in my place, the readings were quite high for wireless radiation. I thought, well, I'm in the middle of a 20-story tall building. I'm probably getting it from all my neighbors and et cetera. So, okay, there it was. But then a couple of months later, I came down with a real sickness that lasted for several days. And after that sickness, I never really got better for months. And, I mean, doing the laundry became a big chore. I didn't have the energy to do that. And then for some strange reason, I thought, well, let's have Norm come over because you have a fairly sophisticated testing machine. You came over. And what we found was that Rogers had in fact put a wireless system into my place, even though I had specifically asked for a wired system. And they told me it was a wired system, right? So we unplugged it. So I lost my TV and I lost my internet. And the next day was the first day, literally in a month, that I had woken up without a headache. And then it took me a couple more months to get back to the level of health I think I'd had before. And this is Rogers, right? In my opinion, they lied to me. They jeopardized my health. They know the scientific studies that talk about the problem of this wireless radiation. They know all about it, but they lied to me. They jeopardized my health. They made me sick, in my opinion. And there we are.
Well, to add to that they had to change the modem coming into your place. They didn't need to make it wireless, but they chose to. Now, that's bad. It gives off a lot of bad radiation. But it was that second item that they put in there, which both Telus and Rogers or Shaw at that time are putting these extenders in, which are pulsing at the rate higher than what is acceptable under Safety Code 6. So, of course, you were getting sick. But both Rogers and Telus are doing that. The other day, I was at another person's place, and she had been getting very confusing stories about what Telus was going to do. Fortunately, she was nearby, so I was there when Telus was there and made sure they didn't put wireless devices in. It took several trips from Telus to get things organized. And the Telus, and sure you get the same story from the Rogers installer if they'd been doing it, that this is the first time in 2 years of installing that anyone's ever been concerned about it.
Right.
People just don't realize what the harm the radiation levels that are being inflicted on people are doing. That most have heard a few rumors about the various health concerns or whether they're sensitive like me to electromagnetic radiation, but the media doesn't tell people about how serious it is. It's I like to tell people it's much more serious than the rumors that people have heard about how bad it is. That well, I'm glad we got the radiation down at your place, and you're probably getting a better sleep, feeling much better all the time now, or most of the time, anyways. There's other issues that we all have to deal with.
And all of this is done with the full support of the government of Canada, who allow them to do it, and the full support of the media, who never talk about it, right? So that's Rogers. That's Rogers.
Yeah, I'll just add one thing, that anyone in the local area, if they get in touch with me, I'm quite happy to come around and measure the radiation for no charge, and shall we say, discuss ways that they can do something to reduce their exposure to radiation. It's a 24-hour, 24/7 radiation that where your body just doesn't get a chance to get away from it.
Yeah, I now unplug the equipment here where I'm living at night. It's no problem. I unplug it so everything's off. And in fact, I unplug it now all the time when it's not being used. And I recommend strongly that people do that. This stuff is not a joke. It does impact people's health. They know it impacts people's health. They just don't care. Medhi, let's move on to the...
I want to say that Norm got his first customer, so he can come to my place and measure the radiation.
Okay, when we go off the air, we'll have a little talk about when you'd like me to do it.
Thank you.
Okay. Medhi, you wanted to talk about starting off with the election in Canada that's going on right now.
Yeah, yes, I'm very, very nervous about this election because the choices that the corporate media and the corporations put in front of us is both of these choices, conservative and liberals, they are all in support of corporate agenda and against public interest. And that's the only two choices they are discussing in the media right now. Mr. Carney or Mr. Poliver. Nothing else. And they never talk about what is in the interest of people of Canada. What is people of Canada need? For example, the issue of affordability, the issue of housing, the issue of health, protection of health, the issue of child care and child interest. None of these are being discussed. They are pushing, they created a crisis and a chaos by Mr. Trump talking about tariff, and everybody thinking about the tariff and what Trump is doing, and forget about what is in their interest. Because this election, there will be for 4 years the government there to cut your social expenditure, to give more power to the corporations, to deregulate environmental regulation, which is related to your health and well-being and our society well-being. And they are pushing this agenda without any resistance. And I'm warning people that if this goes through, if one of these two stooges of corporations get majority government, you are going to be very, very sorry about it with what they are going to do.
Well, there seems to be no question that one of the two of them, there might be a chance of a minority government, which would probably be just as bad, but one of the two of them is going to win.
It's not just that bad. Also all of these parties, liberal, NDP, conservative, they are all in cahoot with the corporate interest. There is a difference when we have a minority government. For example, the first 4 years of super majority by liberals, you didn't see any policies toward helping the people of Canada. But in the last minority government, because of NDP is pretending that they are for the ordinary Joe in the street, they push the liberals to implement childcare, dental care, pharmacare. All of it in the is good for people of Canada. And so
now,
that's
Medhi, those are very important things. I mean, do we not have to give the NDP credit for that, if they in fact did it?
Because of the minority government. See, for example, if we see the same thing in where the NDP is ruling, for example, right now in British Columbia, with the tariff, what did Mr. EB is doing? Right away push the corporate agenda by saying we are going to allow more environment mining and more gas and oil exploration and reduce the environmental regulation. That's what he's doing when he is in power. But when there is a minority government, the NDP act differently.